Hey y'all, this is going to be my labor and delivery video for Edison. I did a blog post about it, kind of explaining it. I feel like I wanted to make a video about it just for my own memory. It has been 4 months. He's 4 months old. I'm sorry. And so it's taken me 4 months to do this, but I feel like if I don't do it now, I'm going to forget a lot. So, to kind of give you a little background about it, I delivered naturally with my daughter. I did get an epidural when I was about 7 centimeters, and she was delivered after 14 hours of labor. So I kind of figured, oh, and she was face up instead of face down. So they were able to flip me onto my hands and knees, and she was actually she flipped. So at time of delivery, she was able to be delivered naturally, because typically if babies are that way and they don't turn, you do have to have a C-section. So this time around, my original due date was February 22nd. It got changed to March 1st, back to the 22nd. I mean, it really was all over the place on delivery dates or due dates for Edison. So February 22nd comes around, no baby. March 1st comes around, no baby. I was going to the doctor every week. I was so frustrated. I would have tons and tons and tons of contractions, but I felt like I would never really feel him engage. You know how people say all the time that they feel like that pressure down there and they feel like it's just heavy? I never felt that. I never felt, I would feel things, but it was never, that's never how it was. And so I always knew that something was up with that. Well, he would always check the baby, like starting at 36 weeks, he would check me and I'd be dilated or I'd be effaced more, but the baby was never engaged, ever. And so go in for my appointment on the 7th of March, and Dr. Long says, you ready to have a baby? I said, yes, I've been ready to have a baby for 2 weeks. So we go in March 8th we have to be there at 6 o'clock in the morning, so we got there at 5:30. We were ready. I get there and I had kind of a birth plan. I wanted to have as natural of a delivery as possible. You know, the less intervention, the better. But after about, I would say 3 or 4 hours of being there, they started me on Pitocin. I was about 3 centimeters dilated when they started me on Pitocin, and I'm not joking, y'all, the moment they started me on Pitocin, my contractions went from bearable to insane, like every minute and a half. I mean, hardcore contractions, and it just hit me. I mean, it was overwhelming, and I had told Wayne up to that point, you know, this is bearable, this is okay, you know, I'm okay, but and I feel like maybe they had given me the Pitocin too early. I felt like maybe I would have gone a little bit longer, and that's what I kind of don't like about inductions, in my opinion, is that it's not that they're in a hurry for you to do this. I just feel like, I don't know. I kind of feel like they do want you to be in a hurry. I mean, they want you to come in, deliver the baby, and be done. And so, you know, Pitocin just speeds that up. And, you know, I feel like looking back now, I wish I would have said no, you know, let me try to do this on my own, because I was already contracting. Anyway, around 9 o'clock, Dr. Long came in and he checked me, and like I said, I was around 3 centimeters, and he said, okay, I'm going to break your water. So he broke my water. After he broke my water, it was just a different feeling of contractions. They weren't painful yet. I'm not going to say painful. They were intense. They were just very, I mean, they were unbearable, but I can't explain explain it. It was a weird feeling. It wasn't pain. It was bad. So he breaks my water and he says, okay, I'll be back around lunchtime. So between the time that he broke my water and lunchtime, I made no progress. I was having contractions because of the Pitocin, but it wasn't doing anything. So he comes back in and he checks me and he says, you know, I'm going to be honest with you, you know, the baby's still not engaged. She's not in your pelvis. That's not a good sign. And right about that time, my contractions were starting to be really, really painful. And, you know, I was getting nauseous and sick with each one of them. And Edison's heart rate started to drop with every contraction. The first few times it did it, his heart rate would go from the 140s to, you know, 99, 100. And then after that, it would go from like the 140s to like 40 and 30s and climb gradually back up to the 70s and then jump back up. The first time it did that, at least 10 people ran in my room. They ran in, turn on your side, put some oxygen on. I mean, it was like insane. So that I started getting scared at that point, you know, because they couldn't tell me what was going on. So they put the internal monitor on him, which, you know, they put the little hook on his head. I guess it is. I don't know exactly how they do it, but he had little bobos on his head afterwards from it. And they said that would be a way they could monitor his heart rate better opposed to the one just on my stomach, which I agreed because it was pretty scary. So they do that, and it is probably around between 1 and 2 o'clock-ish. And every contraction I had from that point on, every contraction, his heart rate would drop. And that was so stressful. And at that point, the pain was so bad with the contractions, and I was worrying about his heart rate dropping. I asked for an epidural at that point. I said, I can't do this anymore. And they gladly gave it to me. And let me tell you, my anesthesiologist was a butt. He was a butt. He was not a nice person. He did not want to be at work, it seemed like. I mean, he wasn't understanding at all at the fact that I was having contractions the whole time he was doing this. It was so painful. He just wasn't understanding, so I was very happy when he was done. And with my epidural with my daughter, it was instant paradise. And with this epidural, it wasn't like that. It never fully worked, ever. I was having to flip from side to my back to sitting up and back, repeating that order because of his heart rate. I don't believe it ever had a chance to really be, you know, fully work correctly, because whatever side I was on, it wouldn't be numb anymore, and then I'd switch, and then the side that I was on there, it wouldn't be numb anymore. So it never fully, completely, to me, worked. I still felt the contractions, and they were still painful. It did take the edge off of it a little bit, but it was still pretty painful. So around between 3 or 4, I got the epidural, and then Dr. Long came in and checked me, and I was around a 5. And he wasn't happy with that progress. He was very concerned about the baby. And he said, you know, listen, we need to start talking about a C-section, which I thought that was insane. I'm like, you know, I understand for the baby's reasoning, but I just wasn't ready to talk about that. I wasn't ready to hear that that was an option that anybody was thinking about. So I started in back in my mind thinking this is what's going to happen. I'm going to have a C-section. So again, at that check that he did, he said the baby's just not engaged. He's not engaged. He's not in your pelvis, and he should be at this point. He should have been beforehand. You know, a lot of babies engage from 35 weeks on. I mean, and he just never did. And so finally labor progressed. After the epidural, still I was never able to get comfortable. Around 6 o'clock, Dr. Long got there. He checked me. I was fully dilated. Well, it was about a 9.5, but he was able to stretch me to fully dilated. and he said, you know, even though he's not engaged, let's try to push. You know, at this point with his heart rate dropping so much, I mean, the neonatal team and my nurse just had a chair in my room and was sitting in there because they couldn't leave. They would walk out and I'd have another contraction. They'd have to come back in because his heart rate was dropping so much. So he, you know, get up, get ready, you know, prep the room. They prep the room for delivery, and I start pushing, and, you know, he's like, oh, let me note this. From probably 25 weeks on in my pregnancy, I knew Edison was face up. He wasn't face down. Dr. Long knew this. And so let's go from that point. So the whole time into labor, Dr. Long, because of last delivery, he assumed he could turn him. So not only do we have the heart rate against us, we had that he wasn't engaged, and we had that he was turned the wrong way in my stomach. This was all the things that were against me for a natural delivery. But doctor knew my wishes, and so he tried. So I start to push, and I mean, it felt like he was like reaching inside of me, and I think he was. I really think he had both hands trying to turn the baby. And at one point I feel the baby shift. He did. He turned him from face up to sideways. So now at this point he's sideways, and the baby didn't tolerate that at all. His heart rate was dropping to the 30s. I mean, every time I'd have a contraction, and he just could not get his head to engage at all. I mean, he couldn't. He said, I'm trying everything I can. I think I pushed around 4 times, and Dr. Long said, nope, we're getting this baby out. And at this point, my heartburn was so bad, y'all. But from, you know, when you're pregnant anyway, and you're told you can't eat or drink, or it's upsetting for that. So I mean, I was already used to drinking water so much, and, you know, eating. My heart rate was ridiculous. My heartburn was horrible, and so I had thrown up because of that. And then they told me, okay, you're having a C-section, Miss Hanks. Here's this liquid, you need to drink it. It neutralizes the acid in your stomach. I'm like, are you joking? I'm nauseous as hell, and you're going to tell me to drink this? I said, I'm going to puke it up. I said, I'm going to puke it up. You can give it to me. I'm going to puke it up. She gives it to me. Puke it. Start puking. She's like, oh, well, at least you got some of it. I'm like, what? You know, it just got puked up. I didn't get any of it. And so I think it was probably a 30-minute waiting period. I'm still feeling my contractions. I'm still in labor, but they stopped the Pitocin. So I knew at that point my body was trying to do it on its own, but he just wouldn't go. I mean, he wouldn't engage. So probably around 6:30, they say, let's go. You know, they will. Wayne puts his little outfit on, and they wheel us down the hallway. We get into the operating room, and y'all, I was scared shitless. I'm sorry to cuss, but I was petrified. I was by myself. I mean, if any of you have ever had surgery, you know, I was by myself. And they laid me down, and I felt like I was like this. Like my stomach was poking up like this. Here's my head down here, and here's my feet. That's literally how I felt. And so here comes the heartburn, nauseousness again. I was like, I'm gonna throw up. I can't breathe. I can't feel myself breathing. And, you know, they're like, you're fine, you're fine. I was like, no, I'm not fine. I'm not fine, y'all. This doesn't feel okay. I don't like this position. I don't like, and so before they could even do anything, I'm having a panic attack. I'm just panicking beyond belief. I've never felt this way before. It was an overwhelming feeling of helplessness, you know, that this is not what I want. This is not what I wanted. I didn't want this. And, you know, I was focused on getting the baby out the safest way, but I just could not fathom that they were about to cut my stomach open. And I'm going to stop this, so it's going to be 2 parts. Sorry. Hold on one second.